Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this new webinar on social engagement. After a session on environmental sustainability in March, our panel of experts will discuss the S in ESG this morning. While the E has received a lot of attention over the last years and even decades, tackling the social dimension is relatively recent. The notion of employee well-being and contribution to communities and neighbors has gained traction over the last few years. And this is the topic of today's webinar. It's a relatively new topic, and the panelists will discuss the current state of thinking and good practice with respect to social engagement and well-being. For those of you who don't know GLP, we are a global fund manager, developer, investor, and asset manager for logistics. In terms of people, we have more than 1,500 colleagues operating in 18 countries across 4 continents. Our European business counts more than 160 people in 12 countries. We've been operating in Europe for more than 30 years now, and over time we've seen that more and more people work in the warehouses that we develop and manage. We estimate today that close to 30,000 people work in the facilities across our European portfolio. These facilities have become work environments where customers' value creation has increased over time, and the operations performed have become more and more complex and varied in nature. This has led to a stronger focus on well-being of the people working in our facilities. Before we jump into today's topic, a few words on housekeeping. Today's session is meant to be interactive, and you're invited to submit questions in the chat box that the panelists will try to answer at the end of the session. To get started on well-being, a quick question to the audience. What is your well-being routine to get a good start into the day? Graham, while the audience is replying, what is your routine to get a good start into the day?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the simple things I do is turn the radio on in the morning and listen to the news to put my brain in gear while having a shower. Obviously, I brush my teeth, have a quick shower, and well, I don't really have much hair to brush, so then off I go.
Okay. Rebecca, probably some more time with your hair than Graham?
Maybe a little more time on my hair than Graham. And I also like to try and go out for a walk if I can before work. I find it really helps clear my head and gets me in a good headspace for the day.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Well, we see a lot of different activities here between cold showers, 5-kilometer walk. That's brave. Coffee, obviously, good one. That's what I would have put there, I think. Well, thank you, everyone. As we will see on the next slide, our customers and occupiers of warehouse space take well-being of their employees very seriously. As the logistics sector grows, the industry has been put under higher scrutiny. Customers are under pressure to raise their profile with respect to social engagement and employee well-being. Logistics operations have become more and more labor intensive, and people have taken center stage in modern logistics facilities. Today, e-commerce facilities can accommodate up to 500,000, even 2,000 employees in some cases. So attracting and retaining talent has become a critical factor for success of most logistics businesses. Our customers are competing for talent, and real estate designed around the needs of people, involvement in communities, and a strong commitment to employee well-being have become must-haves that help to attract people. I'm Florian Vnuk, Head of Business Development Europe at GLP, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's panelists. Rebecca, you're a Sustainability Director at Savills. A few words on your background, please.
Thanks, Florian. Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Rebecca Smith. I lead the sustainability team at Savills. I've been working in sustainability and property for the last 10 years across both Asia Pacific and Europe. And I've been working with GLP, championing a number of ESG initiatives for the last couple of years.
Thank you, Rebecca. Graham Monroe, you're Head of Construction at GLP Europe, for those who don't know you. Graham, a few words of introduction from your end, please.
Yeah, sure, Florian. Morning, everybody. My name is Graham Monroe, as Florian said. I've got 20 years in logistics real estate, focusing principally on construction development for GLP. I also sit on GLP's European ESG committee. I'm very much embedded within all ESG initiatives at project execution level, and look forward to today in sharing some constructive discussions in the S in ESG, and hopefully give you some insight on how we at GLP are deploying this topic across our pan-European business.
Thank you, Graham. We've seen employee well-being has become a critical factor for successful logistics operation. At the same time, local officials and neighbors have become more aware of the potential of value creation that a new logistics facility brings to communities and want to reap its benefits. Communities and employees expect more and more from logistics facilities, and developers and investors promise to make warehouses more attractive to communities and to the people actually working inside those facilities. A few questions that we need to ask ourselves are, how do we go beyond good intentions and isolated initiatives? How can real estate make a meaningful contribution to employee well-being? How do you create value for communities? And finally, how do we measure success? Many people talk about well-being and social engagement, but where do you start from? How do you create the connection with real estate? Graham, do you want to give it a shot, please?
Yeah, sure, Florian. I think that logistics, real estate development and asset management can have a significant step to play when it comes to social value, and this is depicted as such. It creates a social environment when all these activities come together. I think if you look at the diagram here on the right on the screen that we have, in finance, we speak about, the company's bottom line. We usually mean this as being profits, but for social sustainability, for context, we talk about triple bottom line. This believes that companies should commit to focusing as much on social and environmental concerns as they do on profits. The theory suggests that instead of one bottom line, there should be three: profit, people, and the planet, which for me in today's world kind of makes a lot of sense, right?
And social value is aligned to stakeholder theory, which says that businesses have a broad public purpose to create value for society and for a wider range of stakeholders in their value chain. Theoretically, we know that stakeholder management brings benefits such as awareness of social issues, access to information, access to creative solutions, and legitimacy. And these factors are especially important when we consider real estate. Real estate also provides many opportunities for tangible actions to improve health and well-being and social value for employees, local communities, and the wider communities, which Graham has already touched on and we'll discuss further today.
Thank you, Rebecca and Graham, for setting the scene on the topic. Let's jump to a quick poll at this point with the audience as a check-in where we've gotten so far. So for you in the audience, how familiar are you with social value?
I think to add here, Florian, the social values. Can you hear me, Florian? Yes.
I can, yes.
Yeah, I think, social value as a topic is sort of, as we've said, is emerging. So I think, people are aware of it, but how you actually bring it together is that is the key, I think, at the moment of where we're at in the market. Okay, well, let's jump to there's one answer. Okay, well, three. Let's jump into the heart of the topic then. We have some answers coming in. Okay, maybe one question, why now, Graham? Why do we start talking about social value now? I think that there are a number of driving factors in social value in logistics, but I would first point to, firstly, the people. People generally have become far more aware of what impact things can have on an area. People really have a voice and real choice today and will not be influenced not only by a brand name, but they want to know much more about it. They want to know about the ethics that drive that business and the ethos behind that business of what's driving it. That all comes into play in decision-making and factors to allow things to move forward. I think secondly, if we look at communities, there's obviously pent-up demand for e-commerce the last few years and really expediting across Europe. We've got residential quotas for land, racking up year on year at the moment. Land supply, as we all know, is limited regardless of country. And I think really, if you're a business, you really need to grow and you need land. Therefore, councils and governing bodies pay very close attention to the value add piece of what that particular site can deliver to its local community and area. As we know, industrial logistics has grown exponentially across Europe at different speeds, and we could say today the place to invest for funds at this moment in time. And with that comes the value add piece and what has come with it. So let's have a look at how social sustainability has evolved. Over to you, Rebecca, please.
Thanks, Graham. Yes, so for a reasonably long time, the idea of sustainability and sustainable development really focused on environmental trends and priorities. However, since the late 1990s, social sustainability has been seen as an addition to the environmental and economic factors. And from 2000 onwards, social sustainability is considered an independently important sphere of sustainability. It's defined by several topics, including poverty, unemployment, health, education, gender equity, and many more. Businesses are really realizing the importance of social sustainability and building this into their business planning. It helps to change their focus from short-term profits towards longer-term sustainability and create value for all stakeholders, including employees and wider society. So let's look at a few definitions. How do we define social sustainability today? So social sustainability is about equity, quality of life, human rights, diversity, labour rights and community development. And there are a few widely accepted definitions of social value. For example, it's the Institute of Economic Development's opinion that only activities which go beyond good business practice can be considered as social value. In relation to the built environment, the UK Green Building Council have defined social value as when buildings, places and infrastructure support environmental, economic and social well-being, and in doing so, improve the quality of life of people. The UK GBC does not prescribe exactly which outcomes create social value, as this should be based on the interest of the people and the specific area impacted by the project. Ultimately, incorporating social value is about supporting the creation of healthy and prospering communities.
I think really, to add to what Rebecca's talked about around the main theory and principles, it really brings these factors together that really creates generally a really pleasant place to work and live, and a place to be proud of by having the self-care engagement and ownership with the development, whether it be on a personal level or whether it be at company level. In summary, all these factors contribute positively to strong social cohesion on social sustainability. There's a huge positive impact to an individual or an area. Let's keep it simple and look at what we believe the three main drivers we view that really push social value in logistics. So let's have a look. I think, for us, we've had a look at it and we've sort of reviewed it and we've came to the conclusion. I think firstly, the customers, the big brand names, the big names out there, they influence how much they are engaged on the topic and paying close attention to it. My impression is generally all the big brands are waking up to the fact that social value cannot be ignored, along with other ESG matters that need to be addressed currently in the market. But the S in the ESG is slowly making to the top of the agenda. How can they really be the employer of choice and to attract and retain staff? I think secondly, let's move to investors. We all know, all keen for this to gain momentum at the moment. In the last year, I don't think we've seen a huge rise in this, which drives the discussions really at project level of development of what can actually be achieved. It starts to ignite discussions early on in feasibility stages of development, and this focuses high on the agenda of what can be achieved. I think we at GLP drive, we do try to drive this from the very start, from inception, and actually the easiest way to align all parties, we find it, from the very start, to get on with this and try and understand what it's all about. We can discuss this later on in a few examples I have. I think then when we move to, employees is definitely a key driver. We've discussed this about the feel-good factor, about where you work. Hugely important, and I think should not be underestimated, the employees in the communities, which can either make or break a business in today's environment. Doing the right thing as a local operator in business in a community is critical, and the execution of activities to widen community rapport and relationships to embed is hugely important. Let's have a look at, with Rebecca, how social value can actually be measured.
Great, thanks, Graham. Yeah, so it's important to note that measuring of social value is still a relatively new idea. There are a few different ways to do it, and in the UK, one of the ways to measure social value in a financial context is in line with the National TOMS framework, which stands for Themes, Outcomes and Measures. This framework gives an independently calculated financial value to different social initiatives, such as helping people back into work or providing support to local schools. And it looks beyond just the high level figures, such as how many people have been employed, into the more granular detail, like who was employed in those jobs and the total value that helping that person back into employment has on society. Being able to put a social social value into a financial context allows it to resonate alongside other financial figures. And it really does bring it to life for some stakeholders, such as investors.
I think let's take a look now at the engagement piece on the social value side. I'm going to walk you through that. I think when you look at this slide here on the screen that we've got, it's clear that social sustainability themes run through each stage as touch points, is actually involved in all stages throughout the lifespan of a development. But until now, it's never really been looked at on this as a topic across all stages. Social sustainability is everywhere, and it's with us all the way through the themes here, from investment feasibility, through the design, the actual construction, asset management, and even goes all the way to deconstruction at the end of the project. I will now walk through the stages together, Rebecca, and touch on some of these key points as we go through it.
So as Graham mentioned, social sustainability can be applied to any stage in an asset life cycle, from feasibility to operational. And feasibility stage is the time to investigate and understand the geographical area, what the social makeup of this area is, and how a development could positively impact this area.
And what I want to add to what Rebecca's saying, I think one of the main things for GLP is to really understand the local market and the needs of the local area. It's so important to have the local knowledge and interaction where we can really help that community where we will be developing. An early stage, we want to be looking at sites, running our own due diligence on ESG, and what impact we're going to have on that area and community. We want to mitigate and regenerate things that are maybe lost or recreate new, but at the same time, looking at what the area is lacking or what it needs. We can do that by engaging with local authorities and local communities to find out the best information. Rebecca, do you want to maybe walk us through that and how that process looks, please?
Yeah, sure. So a local needs analysis can dictate where a social sustainability strategy should focus for maximum impact on the specific community and the location of the project. A local needs analysis will look at several levels, such as employment, education, income, health, crime, and barriers to services such as housing. So as an example here, you can see Bedford and how it scores on overall levels of deprivation. The results from this type of analysis can provide direction for the social sustainability initiatives that are then pursued. So for example, where a local needs analysis might show particularly poor air quality or health and fitness levels, initiatives like partnering with cycle schemes at local schools would be a good idea and could be investigated. And this ensures that each social strategy is tailored to the needs of an individual area and community to have the maximum levels of positive impact.
I think when we look at the slide here and the definition in this slide, I think it's very true what it says. I think in the top right, one of the main principles we at GLP really strive for and work hard on is good building design. I constantly drive that. Sharp design that provides a wide range of economic, social, cultural, environmental, security, and health benefits to the community. For example, ensuring our developments we have feasible surrounding areas of green space, open to the public and employees can share alike to be used all year round. What we're really saying here is if all things are clean and new from the very start when they're built, we want to ensure that that remains and well maintained throughout the period of the duration of the building and the community that it sits. It wants to sit as pride of place and that sort of approach. Create a nice area and create the sense of identity around it with the local community and ensure engagement where feasible. Let's have a look at now on the design principles that I've touched upon. I think one of the items that I was particularly keen to update and refresh within GLP is our European Design Guide that we created last year. The European Design Guide is essentially a guide that follows the market trends and demands to social sustainability in mind. It looks at other factors for construction, but it really focuses on part of it is the social sustainability part. Within this part, we've really captured all the main considerations at design stage that our construction directors need to be thinking about with our customers and our customers may ask. It's really a generic guide that really works through and can execute on as you work through a design. Our aim is really, really simple: to anticipate market trends at design stage that align with current market conditions and needs. We're very much focused on the well-being side, the natural surroundings of the outside areas within our design principles. Let's go through a few examples of what exactly I'm talking about here. I think, at design stage, we want to improve social sustainability, including promoting, an active lifestyle, such as taking the stairs instead of the lift, healthy eating and a healthy commute. And I think, all of this possible, you want to try and bring that environment indoors to the building as well, through, promoting good air quality in the building and limiting harmful substances in the products and building materials that we're using. The look and feel and the design of the building is really, really quite important. And we have to deliver on that from the outset. So well-being considerations are always considered sort of key as part of the design, is what we're looking at. I've got some further examples here on the next slide that really walks you through on the building elements. If I take maybe just 2 of these examples as a quick sample, I think building environment analytics and monitoring. I think, building environment analytics sounds a fancy word, but it's not really. It's talking about thermal comfort in the building for people's well-being, and really ensuring and monitoring the air quality in the building that's being circulated is really healthy in terms of, the people working there. You need to have a healthy environment to work within. And I think, post-COVID, that's going to be even more important. I think as well, organic plant throughout, the green feeling, biophilic design we've talked about, the feeling of bringing the, this concept from the office concept, the feeling of bringing outdoors inside for calmness and feeling of nature, of a positive mindset. I do genuinely think it does make a difference if you work in a nice, bright, light environment with fresh thinking. So I think, ultimately what we're seeing is the design of a building can greatly affect the well-being of the people that are using it. I think especially as sort of research shows that, 90% of our time is actually spent indoors as human beings, which is an interesting factor that I noticed. So design factors such as, good quality daylighting, well-designed acoustic factors in an office, we all know can make a huge difference to the well-being and efficiency of the staff actually using the building. So I do think, post-pandemic COVID, we'll expect the well-being of staff to be really at the top of the agenda, and working environment of how the look and the feel of all of that comes together. Let's now talk about operational aspect in the asset side. I think, operational initiatives, when we're in the buildings in operation under the asset management side, gym areas becoming more and more sort of the norm in bigger buildings. We've got quite a lot of employees for breaks. We're seeing relaxation zones here in the pictures for employees, and also, amenities for the drivers at the facilities expecting Wi-Fi. These are the type of examples we're seeing as the market norm in the way that it's headed across Europe at different degrees at pace, I would say, as we can see. And these are all real life examples that we have actually executed on with myself and the teams. No longer these initiatives are out there, but they're a key topic to employee well-being and retention. And I always keep going back to the point, how the big names, the big brands, they all want to know how can they be employer of choice in the area. The emphasis on well-being continues, I think, externally too, to touch upon. I think in some of these pictures you see walking trails, for example, and here in Milton Keynes, where we've actually got a public car park where the people can actually walk around the lakes. These measures also serve to protect biodiversity in the area that, to be honest, from construction could also be destroyed throughout the development, but instead are preserved. I think a lot of people know with us at GLP, we focus on our B initiatives as the sites continue in operation. We have across our sites. We've actually currently got around 1 million bees in our operations in UK around our live sites in a site protected manner that our beekeepers manage and run. And that's sort of running now into Europe quite wide as well within GLP. I think, to factor on that and to labour on that, the honey produced from the bees in our hives are actually given to the tenants. We don't make any money out of the honey whatsoever. What we produce, we give away, and we will turn that into products for charity events as giveaways, and also as part of the food and catering for charity events. So it's really just a great initiative overall, to be honest, in operational asset management, and a great example. I'm going to hand over to Rebecca now, who's going to touch upon a few other things.
Yeah, so at construction stage then, we have seen loads of opportunities to make positive social value contributions. We've been able to work with GLP and their general contractors on some really fantastic initiatives, including providing MVQ training, donations to local food banks, providing wellbeing training to staff, and volunteering within the local community. GLP have set social value requirements for their contractors and provide support to them to ensure that interventions are tailored to each project. And this allows them to maximise on the social value in line with the needs of the local community.
And I think, to add to what Rebecca's saying, at construction stage, where I'm heavily involved with all the construction directors and project managers and consultants, I think, we're really trying to set the tone, drive the initiatives forward with the general contractors and the supply chain. They can hugely influence all of this. We've done that by getting the general contractors on board at a really early stage, at tender stage, and really raising the awareness of what social value means and what we want to achieve as part of the project and the end goals. For example, in the UK, we have the general contractors and ourselves signing up to the Planet Mark new buildings certification that focuses on two things: carbon reduction measurements throughout the carbon life cycle assessments, but also on the social side, we talk about local school engagement workshops focusing on ESG, biodiversity and climate change in the classroom. In addition to that, we ensure that all our general contractors are signed up to the Considerate Contractor scheme in the UK. For example, what do we mean by that? We want to make sure that within the community we're developing, we're caring about our neighbours as best practice. This could be on initiatives on the site throughout the build, ensuring noise and cleaning is maintained to its maximum and in consideration to the neighbours and the community. Let's look at the process. Over to you, Rebecca.
Yeah, I think Graham's touched on it already, but general contractors are really key. And the process that GLP have is that they take part in workshops to understand how they can maximise the social value of a project in line with the findings of the local needs analysis. There's regular collaboration between GLP and the contractors to engage with the local community, employ disadvantaged people, procure from local small enterprises, and provide support to local community groups or charities. And we also measure social value at 3 points in the project to make sure the delivery of social value targets stays on track. And the general contractors have really bought into this and are proud of the positive impact that they are able to make on the local communities.
I think really to add what Rebecca's saying here, this really entails the general contractor getting behind the scheme, as I've said, at an early stage and seeing where they can make a difference. And some of our pilot schemes that we've trialled on our sites, this has involved the general contractor employing long-term unemployed to upskill back into the workplace as a form of apprenticeship with the general contractor, or to learn a trade back into the site. Another example is the picture here in Northampton that we've got on the slide here. The general contractor here was helping out a charity that tackles poverty and homelessness to build a shed which will be a classroom for service users to be able to learn new skills to support future employment. The general contractor here helped out for a few days to build all of it and put it in motion for something which maybe otherwise would not happen. Essentially, the general contractor being a social intervention of doing a deed for the local community where they operate within. Let's now move to operational period asset management.
A building is operational for a long period compared to the time spent on construction, and therefore it's arguably the operational period that can have the longest impact on social value. Whilst the design and the setup of the building can have an effect on how effective the social value strategy is, it really comes down to the tenants and how they engage with local communities. Working with partnerships is a great way to achieve this, as is working with local suppliers, and also engaging in schemes to help people back into the workplace, like apprenticeships.
And as Rebecca's highlighted on, I really like to give real life samples to the audience to try and sort of show you what we're actually talking about. And here what we're saying, you see the picture here, the general contractor got involved with myself and we invited 2 local schools to the site. The topic being, to the school and the class was, ever wondered what goes inside your big blue box? And it was really aiming at local schools how to understand firstly how e-commerce works and also the technology that goes within it and needed to drive that topic. But we also looked at the construction aspects and what it takes to make all this happen and to be executed at project level. The aim really being to get young people interested into construction and technology generally. Overall, a great result and worked better than I could ever anticipated, I have to be honest, with the local school requesting further visits and other year groups to attend and do the same workshops. We did a workshop afterwards with the kids on site to make sure the key messages and understanding was taken back to the classroom for further learning with their teachers further on in their learning. The next slide that we're going to have a look at is further examples we've been active on at GLP on the operational side of the social value. Let's take a look. I think that, GLP continues to mean, I've said, our beehives are quite a big topic in our business all round. It's an all-round project that we're involved with our beekeeper services. But to put that into context, I think the middle picture shows hand sanitizer. You're probably saying, what's hand sanitizer got to do with bees? But I think during the pandemic, there was, as you might have known, throughout various countries, there was a shortage of hand sanitizer. And basically hard to get hand sanitizer for local authorities, etc. So we quickly stepped into action with our bee community and got a COVID-approved hand sanitizer made with a honey-infused sanitizer. And we distributed it throughout all our sites in Europe to give to the construction workers on site that it could be used. But we also gave it to the local dementia centre in UK that were calling out for shortages of hand sanitizer. So it's a small thing and a bit of a strange concept during a pandemic, but it was something for a sort of force for good that we tried to do. And then lastly on here, you see our latest initiative is Sow and Grow, as I call it, with wildflower seeds. You probably say, what's that got to do with logistics? But what we're trying to do is distribute this through, we will distribute this through our 12 offices throughout Europe and our ESG team members to really encourage staff, but also customers to get growing wildflowers and fauna for the bee population and wildlife within their area. We're also working with local schools within the UK community to encourage sow and grow schemes at local level on projects that we're executing. It's a chance to really get outside in the spring weather and help regenerate nature in your area. I think ultimately what we're saying is that social sustainability doesn't need to be a big thing. It can be very small in activities, but it can also make a difference. Yeah.
Thank you, Graham and Rebecca, for this overview on what's possible. Can you give us some recent initiatives or case studies on that GLP has embarked on with respect to social value sustainability, please?
Yeah, sure, Florian. I think let's go to Milton Keynes, the building it's called Magnitude in Milton Keynes in UK. It was a speculative build. That means with no customer in mind for the audience. I think earlier we talked about design principles and within the European Design Guide on social sustainability. I think if you look at this design, you can see it really sort of echoes the initiative of a sort of welcoming building at the entrance here with the lighting and the detail. And I'll sort of let Rebecca explain this project in detail, what we did on the social value side.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, so as Graham mentioned, it was a 6-month construction project in Milton Keynes, and Savills worked with GLP and their general contractors to firstly understand which social value activities would have the most relevance and impact in this area in Milton Keynes. And therefore, a local needs analysis was undertaken to drive a review and also drive the social sustainability strategy. And we also measured the social value of the initiatives that were being undertaken throughout the construction process. Initiatives really varied and included employing local people, donating land to the Parks Trust, and using local suppliers. And there was also training provided to employees and staff on health and wellbeing and diversity and inclusion. Social value was delivered against all the main themes of the National Themes, Outcomes and Measures Framework, and also all of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which we use often in sustainability to assess how sustainable things are. The project was particularly strong in a few areas of the UN SDGs, including industry, innovation and infrastructure. And this is due to the site's net zero embodied carbon status and also the focus on local supply chains. And the project also scored really well in the area of decent work and economic growth. This would have incorporated all the efforts made on the project to support long-term unemployed people back into work, and the training carried out on the project, and also the volunteering and donations to local community projects that the project development made. And if we look at the figures, the project had really fantastic results, with 39% of social value being delivered against total contract value. To put this into some context, what we would expect for projects of similar length, around 6-month construction projects, would be around 10 to 15% of social value delivered against contract value. And in general, around 20% of social value generated against total construction value is considered as a good result. However, this varies on a project by project basis.
Touch upon another example here, moving to Spain within Europe, and a sample I've got for you here. So this sample looks at biodiversity and social engagement at local community in Illescas in Madrid in Spain. Here the local GLP team from the Madrid office recognized, together with the original owner of the land in Illescas, that we both wanted to make the local area surroundings a nicer environment, which was an industrial area as such zoned. There was quite a bit of spare land around the site, which wasn't owned by us, but owned by the local authority. And a lot of that land was scrub land that could never actually be developed on due to poor access and location of where it was. The local authority and council was approached to see if the spare land could be utilised to do actually something positive for that area, which would otherwise be left as scrub land. Further discussions were held with the local authority, and town hall, as you know, in Spain, we needed permission. And the permission was granted at local authority to develop this land for several localized projects in conjunction with the local authority. And it really looked at themes on biodiversity together, working with the University of Madrid and the University of Castilla-La Mancha. It is essentially a joint venture from all of us, local community, local authority engagement, and also ourselves at GLP. And it's really a test bed for biodiversity net gain. The local authority want local plants and fauna to regrow there that were established there maybe a long time ago that no longer exists. Local authority landscapers and local communities are tasked with developing the plan and scope overall. It's really been a real collaborated effort until now, and it sort of continues further on. And it's at local level development. And it really shows how you can influence an area at local engagement. And it would have been otherwise as scrubland. So it's really, what I'm saying is it's a test bed really for the local authority in Madrid see what else could be executed throughout Spain. It's a really interesting one to be involved with, and we're proud to be part of it.
Thank you, Graham and Rebecca, for these examples on how we try to support our customers in improving the employee experience on their sites. But what does GLP do internally on social engagement? Graham, maybe over to you.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a really good question, Florian, and a really good sort of touch point at this stage. I think it's, I'm going to go through some of the examples that GLP, I would say, as a business, we're very active on the front, and we do as much as we can to engage at local level throughout. I think what people may or may not know is we're certified by the Planet Mark in every office in Europe across the 12 offices. What does that mean? We're basically measuring our carbon reduction across all our offices annually. And every office and office manager is tasked to monitor this and feedback to ourselves at Core Department in London. And we measure things such as our travel, how we travel. We look at suppliers and, where does the materials come from for our office use in terms of paper? What type of couriers do we use? What type of food do we bring into the buildings for lunches? And we also look at charity values and how we contribute to that, all at local level within each office across Europe. So overall, we try and really focus on the carbon footprint of our business and the social value side, and it's monitored annually by the Planet Mark. We've also got a target, I think, with the Planet Mark to really try and reduce our carbon footprint 5% year on year across our business in Europe, and we're really striving to do that with the office managers and initiatives. On the social side, I would touch upon, I think you see a few pictures here. Gym and yoga sessions are held weekly online by the committee. Really quite good to get active and get going in the morning. Bike rides with our customers as well, and the consultants that work with us as well. This has ended up being quite a big huge event annually held in Lutterworth in the UK, with the customer community of all the logistics centres that are based there. As people might not know, it's quite a huge logistic community we have there in Lutterworth, and it's really a big effort from all, including our beekeepers that bring the products for the catering as well. I think, we're all heavily involved within looking at also volunteering schemes on the social side to help with charities locally, such as Land Aid, Prince's Trust, or the other charity Mind. This could be things such as examples such as sleep outs that we get involved in, interviewing skills for youngsters getting into jobs. And one of my favorite things probably has to be the STEPS challenge, to enter a team for the business within and really get everybody walking and get everybody exercising for the month of September usually. It can get quite competitive in our office on this challenge, but it's all for a great cause at the end of the day, and it really gets you moving and gets you walking around. So it's always quite competitive and really quite good on the social value side, I would say, within the business. But I think all this great, it's all pretty good stuff to be involved with, and it really comes as an organization overall. I've got a few other samples which I would like to show you as well. I think some of these examples here, as you see in the slide, we do a lot of tree planting in areas where if we have some scrub land around our developments that are not being used and it's near residential, etc., we try to do something with it. We can call it usually G gardens and try and do something there in execution. That was one of us planting more trees around the area to make it a nice environment where it was coming to an adjacent properties. I think the middle one, what you see here is, I think you see myself in the picture there as well, actually. It's a bike restoration project we did in Malaga in Spain. It was for a local respite centre for single mothers with children. Needless to say, we basically got there on the bike rebuilds. Took a bit of time, but we got there. Really great team effort to build all the bikes, and actually really rewarding to do on the social side, team engagement and betterment, really generally what we're aiming for the local community. Fantastic day out for GLP to engage on in such a worthwhile cause. I think there's another picture there you see in the middle is Malaga as well. What we did while we were there doing the other activities, we also did a beach clean in the morning with a local authority along Malaga Beach, removing all the plastics and rubbish, which the local authority were very helpful to get us involved with. And then the last one really is the team building side and the social side in Malaga. We did a lot of team activities there as well, and you can see us sort of forming the G there. But yeah, really sort of good fun in the social side as well. I think, we've touched upon quite a lot of different themes and different things about social value today, but what we've looked at so far is we've measured the social value of the construction sites. We've shown you magnitude today in Milton Keynes. That was a pilot project for us on how you actually measure social value. We've set social value targets for all our UK projects, but what I would say is we're looking at venturing this into Europe, and we're trying to find some sort of context of how this can be measured across the board within Europe. And we hope to deploy this in the next years. GLP are committed to reviewing the needs of communities in the area and where developments are and aligning our targets. But I think you can see today the targets, at GLP are really driven through our general contractors, our supply chain, and the consultants. To drive this through as a project level execution is what we're looking at, and we ensure that sort of then carries on then into the asset management side and alignment. So there's a bit of a continued journey there together from feasibility, construction, execution, deployment. I think GLP, we're really looking at the future now in terms of feasibility and how we measure social value in our logistics operations in collaboration with our customers. It's really a discussion point at this point, how we move forward with this with our asset management team, but recognize as well that we need customer engagement to be there with us if we want it to be a joint success. And it's something that we're trying to push on with. I think if we fast forward to 2021, where we are, today, we have a long way. I think we've came a long way in a year on some of these topics, as we've sort of first tested with Tom's the matrix in UK on social value, on the building at magnitude, how we measure it and capture it and report on it. But I think our goal really is to try and execute this style of social measurement, data capture and engagement across all our European countries and initiatives. And we want to be able to see this driven through our ESG task force at country level and through the ESG committee across the 12 countries that we operate. I think there's a hugely jointly vested interest in this in GLP at Europe to make this happen from senior level team downwards, and that is really where we are at the moment. Our ESG task force per country will drive these initiatives as a group effort throughout 21 and 22. So I think, what we're saying is we should move on this, and we'll see a lot of social value examples to bring in the future.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Rebecca, for sharing this overview of what has been done so far. Now, going forward, what is driving the social value agenda for the future?
I think, Florian, today we've shown a lot of examples and talked about social sustainability, about why it's important. But I think the longevity of logistics projects are there for the long term. They're not going away. So let's do something impactful in the local area that makes a difference. I think we as developers, we can make a significant difference. We bring quite big, buildings to the local community, but we can really engage with the local community and bring it in at an early stage of the local needs and requirements. I think we can also, as developers, ignite that discussion on social value sustainability. And I do see it a little bit as our duty to advocate this on social value. And I think it's also, for the business, it's the right thing to do anyway in terms of ethics. So, basically what we're trying to do ultimately is create a better community, greater engagement with the local area and the customers. Greater social value creates, a greater environment, really generally overall. So that's what we're trying to achieve.
And more generally from consultancy, we are definitely seeing that social value generation, calculation and reporting are rising on the agenda of many of the companies that we're working with, particularly within the area of real estate. We can only anticipate that this is going to continue to rise, especially as we see the fallout effects of COVID, which I think has really highlighted the social inequalities that we're working with and how businesses can make a positive impact in these areas. It's increasingly important to staff, tenants, customers, and investors. Graham, I'll let you summarise your thoughts from today's discussion and from GLP.
Sure, thanks, Rebecca. I think then, really to summarise then what we've said all today, I think it's safe to say we're very much at the start of a journey on the S in the ESG. I think on the other areas such as the E has been the focal point the last sort of 10 years and continues to be the focus. But really what you're going to see now is the S really pushing through in ESG, generally in logistics and in the next year ahead. It's certainly as a topic not going away. I think we at GLP will continue to try and embed social value sustainability in our culture and environment that we develop and grow that across the 12 countries. I think we're on a positive path, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to have some positive examples to share in the next years ahead with all this deployment that we're doing across Europe. But I think lastly, we see it as our duty to also advocate on this and educate the wider environment around us that work with this. And really, I think that supply chains, general contractors have really started to really engage and get involved with it and start to understand the concept a lot more from our side. I think it's a challenge, for the sector generally. But for the audience, I would say that regardless of sector, challenge your teams on social value sustainability, become a force for good in that area of social value. And I think what we're trying to show today as well, it doesn't matter if the initiative is how big it is or how small it is, it tries to make a difference. And that's what really counts, to be honest.
Thank you, Graham, and thank you, Rebecca, for sharing your insights this morning. This brings us towards the end of the session. Having said this, we still have some time for some questions. As a reminder, please use the chat box functionality if you have any questions for the panelists. I see first question here. What trends do you see emerging post-COVID lockdown on social value?
Yeah, I'll pick that up, Florian. Yeah. I think really the importance of, I think we've talked about today, the importance about having a safe working environment to work within for the staff. I think that's a big concern for the staff post-pandemic, right? The topic of working from home versus office time, regardless of country at the moment, and how that affects design principles of office space and logistics. Does that change the office environment dynamics for how good the office is and is really a touch point? Does that office become a touch point only for meetings face to face, or does it become a day-to-day interaction again. I think that's something we're going to have to follow up and watch where that trend goes within the office environment towards logistics, and how this importance of the social interaction of the office environment continues, is what I would say.
Okay, well, thank you, Graham. I see another question here. At what stage with respect to social value do you see the principal players of the sector, occupiers, developers, investors, currently?
Yeah, I can speak to that, Florian. So I think it's important to note that it's still a relatively new area for everybody, and all of the stakeholders will be at a different stage in their journey, and they'll all have different drivers around social value depending on their industry type. However, I do think that we're seeing a lot more traction in this area, and I think that's been helped by a couple of things. One, being able to put social value into a financial context really allows it to be considered with other financial drivers, and it speaks to a whole different level of stakeholders, like investors. And also the ability to measure social value gives it that kind of standardization which people can relate to and want to keep aiming to improve on. There's still some way to go. It'll be nice to see a bit more around certification potentially in the area, and I think that would really help drive the agenda forward for lots of the players. I would say for people who are just considering social value for the first time, there's always small things that you can do. There's some project types that would apply to most types of development, for example, such as local partnerships, or potentially looking at bringing people back into the workplace or investigating apprenticeship schemes.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. And maybe one last question that I see here. For GLP, what do you see as your biggest challenge in social value for the coming years?
I'll take that, Florian. GLP, I think. Yeah, I think really good question. I think, one of the biggest challenges for us is we're a growing business. We're expanding constantly into new areas and development, and seeing how that sort of diverses. But I think alignment is going to be the biggest challenge. But also, I would say data capture. Data capture is going to be key in social value, and how it's sort of all captured across all the countries, and sort of formalization of that and reporting format. People are expecting to see reporting formats now on social value. And that's, very much going to be the key for our side, is capturing all that data in one place across 12 countries and formalizing it as a report. That's definitely a challenge in itself on our side.
Okay. Thank you, Graham. Well, thank you to the panelists. Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Graham, once more. Thank you for everyone who joined us this morning in this session. For your information, a recording of this webinar will be made available on our website within the next few hours. If you have any questions to the panelists or want to discuss certain questions more in detail, please don't hesitate to reach out to the panelists directly. And you will also see the the GLP Europe ESG report for 2020 go live on the website within the next few days. So don't hesitate to download a copy if you're interested. And once more, thank you for joining us this morning, and have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.